All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here for another episode of Comeback Stories. And this one, my friends, is a special one because today our guest is Michael Phelps. Widely regarded as the greatest athlete of all time, Michael is the most decorated Olympian in history. He's captured 28 Olympic medals, including a record-setting 23 gold medals. He set 39 world records over the course of his career. Michael has also published 2 autobiographies and a children's book. But why he's really here with us today is because of how he's using his platform to help save lives through the Michael Phelps Foundation and his commitment to raising awareness for water safety and mental health, which Darren and I believe is a better than anything he's ever done in the pool. So Michael's on a mission of changing the perception and stigma around mental health, and we're honored to have him on our show today. Welcome, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, we get right into our story here, or your story here. Can you tell us a little bit about it was like growing up for you?
For me growing up, I was, I guess, a normal athletic kid. I go from the baseball field to the soccer field to the lacrosse field to the swimming pool, just trying to get as much energy as I could out of my system. Growing up with ADHD, obviously I could never sit still. You'll notice today I'm always moving around, I'm fidgeting with something. So that was a way, I think, for my mom to kind of relax me once I got home, right? Settle me down a little bit. And I guess at the age of 11, I started swimming, stopped all the other sports and just focused on that. But like as a kid, I think my childhood was a normal childhood just because I was doing everything I wanted to do. Everything that I did in my career was a dream of mine. So it started as, that little 7-year-old kid when I started swimming, and turned out to be a pretty fun career, pretty enjoyable career.
Can you talk about an early struggle or an early memory of pain that you had?
When I think back to childhood, it's like I remember getting picked on as a kid for having big ears, for shaving my legs, for wearing I don't want to say a Speedo, but it's what everybody knows it, a brief swimsuit. So like for me, I guess I didn't really have too many friends growing up. Like I was kind of in my own world. For me, everything that I wanted to do was in the swimming pool. So I kind of stiff-armed everybody else and was like, screw it. Like I have this amazing opportunity to do something really cool and really special. And I never really thought about, the pain that probably caused me as a kid. Looking back, I think my childhood was normal, but I don't know what a normal childhood is, right? Like I was engulfed in swimming and staring at a black line for 4 hours of the day.
So to me, that sounds like you didn't have a normal childhood.
Right. It's the direct opposite of a normal childhood, yeah.
But what were some of the good sides of that, and then what were some of the bad sides of that?
Honestly, I don't see a bad side to it because I'm to the point where I am now, right? Like I've been able to learn so much throughout my life and throughout my career, what I've done, whether it's in the pool or out of the pool or in our family life now. So for me, I don't think there was any negative things. I think I learned probably at a different pace or in different ways that other people have or do. And I think for the good thing, looking back at it, back when I was in high school, the good thing was I had a routine. I was able to establish a routine early, and I was able to just keep everything in order, right? Like whether it's my schoolwork, whether it's going to practice, whether it's taking care of my recovery and all that stuff. I had all that time and energy to do that. So for me, being able to establish that routine at such a young age, I think helped the longevity, number one, of my career. But also I think it could have played a big role of what we all went through over the last 18 months, 2 years. Being locked down in our home and really not being able to do absolutely anything. So for me at that point, it was so important for me to stay into a routine, working out, making sure I'm doing the self-care that I need for me to be me, right? Like if my glass is half empty, I can't fill my family's cups up. So, I got to take care of myself. So I think the routine aspect of it, I think that was really, really good.
Darren and I talk about it almost every day,
right.
Having a routine. And you just touched on it with COVID and quarantine. And this is what I was teaching all of my clients was find a routine, find structure, because all of a sudden your routine is taken away. There is not structure, and people didn't know what to do with it. So It sounds like having to find that focus your narrowed focus so early worked for you.
100%.
Was there ways that it also worked against you? Or I've heard you talk about how it had ramifications
Yeah,
by having to do that.
I think it's back to the compartmentalizing, right? Like back then, I could compartmentalize absolutely anything and everything I wanted to because it was my career, right? Like there's nobody else that's swimming for me. I'm doing all of the work. So, which means I have to take care of the recovery. I have to take care of the sleep, the food, massages, all of that stuff is on me. So like throughout my career, I had to be that way in order to get the results that I got. Because if I would have done any other way, then I don't think I would have had the clear ability or the chance to be able to do that. So, but I think now, back to what I was saying, like I can't compartmentalize now. I don't like using the word can't. I don't. I hate it. It's a negative word. But I know that I can't do it. I cannot compartmentalize now because there are other people that will affect, or that will be affected because of that, right? My family, my kids, everything else. It trickles down. It's not just me that I'm trying to figure out life for, right? I have all these other people, and I love it. But I had to change how I'm doing it. And I think COVID forced us into staying in that routine, but also, like, for lack of a better word, like, sit in your own shit, right? Like, you had to. Right. We had no other way. Nothing else to do. We were all doing it, right? So, like, I look at COVID as almost as a blessing because the amount of growth that my wife and I went through, the learning opportunities, everything, it was incredible. Incredible.
I mean, I got chills you saying sit in your own shit because that's what I said about the quarantine the entire time. I'm like, this is one long-ass meditation. And why do people run for meditation? Because they don't want to sit in their own shit.
Yep.
Because the thoughts are pretty scary.
Yeah.
But the only way we get through it is to go through it. And we have
It's
to
just
walk
like vulnerability.
we have to walk through the fire.
100%.
And there's so many distractions out there. We all have them. I mean, the smartphones alone is a distraction. But I'm so glad that you brought that up. Who would you say your first real teacher was?
I mean, I would say my coach. Just because how he processed everything, how he presented everything. Like for me, so if I'm trying to swim in the Olympic Games, I get 4 years, one shot every 4 years to do that, right? So it's a 4-year process to get to that point. So physically, emotionally, mentally, we have to prepare that whole 4 years. So I think he taught me the importance of goal setting at such a young age, short term, long term. And for me, I was as detailed as you could possibly imagine, like down to the 100th. So if I want to go 49.98, I got to find how I'm going to, how I'm going to do that. But so I got to take it out in 24 seconds, right? We'll call it that. So how many 24-second 50s do I have to do in practice? So he taught me that at such an early age, and I think that basically opened the door for me to really challenge my mind to believe that anything was possible, right? Like that's back to the word can't, right? Like he took that out of my vocabulary at such a young age because if you say you can't do something, turn the page, move on. Like why are you wasting your time? You've made that choice up for yourself. Move on. Like so we completely removed it from our vocabulary because we wanted to have a chance, right? Like that's all I'm doing. Like I wanted to have a chance to be the greatest, right? I'm doing the work, right? This, that, and the other, but like if you don't do every little small thing right, then you could miss it by that. So I want to have every opportunity to do what I wanted the opportunity to do everything that I could do, but do things that nobody else thought about, dreamed about, or thought was possible. I just didn't care. I don't care. Like, fine, let's go. Like, I mean, that's how I worked. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of a scatterbrain, so I can go all over the place. Right. Sorry.
No, yeah, I feel like in order to create like a life that you really having an impact on people or in creating a legacy, I feel like, there has to be some sort of adversity in the mix of all that.
For sure.
That you go through that strengthens you, that makes you stronger, that just, makes you battle tested. And I know that's why we love having you here. There's not a lot of people in the world I feel like that can relate to winning like 28 medals, but I feel like they can relate to maybe the depression or the things that were just kind of like swelling up on the inside of you along your journey. And so I want to ask you, what were some of the greatest moments of adversity that you faced in your adult life, and take us through what those situations look like.
Oh, man. I guess my first depression spell was in 2004 after my second Olympics. I think that's where I learned what what post-Olympic depression is, and I felt it. That feeling of working towards something for 4 years, and then you get to the end, and you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? Right? Like, I gotta suit back up and go 4 more years to get this one opportunity. You're lost. So in 2004, I had my first depression spell. I'm sure I rode roller coasters up and down to 2008. After 2008, winning 8 gold medals, again, post-Olympic depression. I guess my first DUI was in 2004. My second DUI was in 2014. For me, in 2014, that was the moment where I felt like I didn't want to be alive. I felt like, I was doing nothing right. Felt like everything that I did was completely wrong, and I was hurting everybody around me. And I thought that was the easiest way out. Just forget about it. And I think at that point it was a learning opportunity for me, because I sat in my room for 3 days, didn't talk to anybody, didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't do anything. Just sat there. I wanted to be left alone. After those 3 days, I decided that it was time to check myself into a treatment center, figure out what was going on. Why am I this way? How am I this way? Uncover all of these things. For me, that was probably some of the scariest 45 days of my life. Checking into a place where I knew nobody. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a computer. I had no access to the outside world. I basically, after the first 3 days, was just like, screw it, let's go. Like, I'm all in, right? Like, I'm not 1 foot on the boat, 1 foot on the dock anymore. Let's get something out of this. Let's be vulnerable for the first time, right? Like, let's go to a scary place and try to change and try to grow. And for me, that's I think truly what changed my life. When I was sitting in my room after 2014, after my second DUI, I'm lucky I only had 3 Ambien left. So for me, like, naturally traveling the world, we were given Ambien by doctors to sleep, right? We're traveling across the world, whatever helps us get acclimated. I'm thankful I only had 3. I don't know if I would have had more, what would have happened. So, for me, I think at that point, obviously going into treatment and learning and uncovering more about myself and the struggles that I had as a child and the things that I carried on from my childhood. I uncovered a lot of things about my father that I never wanted to talk about. But I think really just coming out of it, like, I just felt like a different person. I felt like I had a chance, or I had tools to be able to get me through any situation. I'm trying to think where else I can go. I don't know.
Well, I've heard your story about in treatment at the Meadows, and how the first couple days you didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, I had my back against the wall. Basically, like, if this is everybody else, my back is to them. I'm eating. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm completely shut down, because, like, I didn't know when to let the guard down, let the walls down, right? Like, just be open. And I think, it took one person, and his name was Morgan. Morgan came up to me and just put his arm on my back and just started talking to me. And as soon as he did that, my shoulders dropped. I was calm. I was relaxed. I felt support, I guess. And at that moment, I just let everything down, and I was just ready to go, right? Just that sense of ease. I think the first few days were really hard. I remember I was in, like, what do you call it? We called it, like, I don't even know, I forget what we called it, the nursery suite or something. The first few days when you're, like, people are detoxing or making sure all the vitals and everything are right. I remember I would do push-ups and sit-ups and squats until I couldn't move every single night, because I couldn't work out too. So for me, it was just like a way to get everything out. But, like, there were so many emotions, raw emotions, that were going through me for those 45 days. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
I only brought that up because I resonate so much with that. I remember going to my first AA meeting and a guy coming up to me after the meeting and saying, "We need you here." I'm like,
You're like, what?
me?
Yeah.
You don't even know. You don't
Yeah.
even know the stuff that I've done.
Yeah.
But right then it bankrupt the story of I'm alone.
Yeah.
Right there, that was it. So I just wanted to bring that up.
100%. Yeah, it's so true. Like, I mean, because I feel like, for me, like when I spin, and by spin, like if I go into depression or this or that, like, sorry, I looked over, you started, it made me laugh, lost my train of thought. At times, like I feel like I'm alone. You know what I mean? Like when you're going through those depression spells, you feel like you're the only one on earth that ever feels that. But I think that's the coolest thing that I've really found about mental health. People sharing their stories, right? And it's the same thing, right? Like the more people share stories, the more we let our guard down, and the more we can help and change. So yeah, I think that for me, I love that.
It's funny, like we say we really want freedom, but it's like we still find a way to not want to have those conversations. I still do to this day. Like I know that it's what's gonna really have me feeling free and feeling alive and just feeling like, this is what I should be doing, but I still want to run from it in a sense because, my mind doesn't want to go through that pain or that just weird feeling of letting that out again.
Sure.
Sometimes I feel like I've done it enough. Sometimes I feel like, like, why do I got to keep going this route? But it's the route of, like consistently freeing myself. Like there's one day I can feel great and feel this, but it's like if I'm not plugging into that every single day,
Right.
and that's what rehab did to me. I kind of came in the same way you did, kind of fighting everything.
Yeah, of course.
My ego, my pride were just on front lines, and I had to just let that go and be able to receive, and just realizing the power of honesty and allowing people into my life allowed me to go forward and realize it's like I don't have to cling to my accomplishments.
Right.
As much going forward. They're not going to save me. They haven't saved me now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the NFL. I've been where everybody says they dream of wanting to go, and it does nothing for me. So it's like that rehab experience of just, hey, let me put the world on hold, and it does wonders.
Yes. Yes.
It's powerful stuff. I mean, I think just this conversation alone, right? I mean, our hope is creating comeback stories, which, by the way, I guess we should set the context. This is Darren and I's first live podcast we've ever done. We've been doing them all virtual. We're sitting at the Wynn at the beautiful Blue Wire Studios. Shout out to David Meltzer for allowing us to make this happen. And we've got our podcast producer, Paul, and
Shout out to Paul.
Michael's wife, Nicole. So we got an audience. So this is all new to Darren and I. But Darren had a big victory last night, first game of the season.
Come on. Y'all are really going to go there? I'm a Ravens fan, man.
Tough night for Michael last night, guys. Tough night. But no, something that me and Donny always talk about is, the only story that matters is the story that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure you had a narrative that was going on in your head constantly up until that point. But what was the new narrative that you started to develop in your mind after you went to rehab and did that work on yourself?
I mean, I think it's still the same thing, right? Like it's similar to the same thing because, like for me, like I know that I'm not able to compartmentalize like I used to, right? But it's for me, your mind is so powerful, right? Like that's something that we all have to understand, and we need to understand more of it. Our mind is one of the most powerful things we can use. So I think believing in yourself it's the easiest thing, but it's also the hardest thing, right? Like, but I think that's one thing for me. Like I know if I put my mind to something, there's not a soul that's going to stop me from doing it. Like
Right.
I just don't care. Being able to do some of the things that we've done in our career, right? Like people always think, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Like how do they do that? But no, it's you put your mind to something, right? It's little small things that add up to making a big difference. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, one foot in front of the other. I mean, kind of giving myself a break from time to time too. I think that's something that I still have a hard time with, right? Like I want to be perfect all the time, and I know naturally that's not always possible. So as a human being, we make mistakes in our life, and we do it every day. So I think that's one thing, again, during the quarantine that I was able to learn. I think more of, or I guess be aware of. Maybe not learn, just be aware of. And I think that's something that is a start, right? Like for me, like I picked up swimming and everything I did in the sport like that. Everything I did in my life was around swimming. So I can't expect to understand and know everything that I'm doing on dry land all the time, right? Like it's going to be an experience. It's a growing experience for me, a learning experience for me. So, but I mean, naturally, I just always think that I can do anything that I put my mind to, and I just don't care because it's, you know, it's you have to do work in order to get to a goal, right? But that's kind of how we all do what we do. But for me, I still have goals that I want to accomplish and things that I want to do, but it's just different than staring at a black line and swimming up and down the pool.
Right.
Well, you mentioned awareness, which Darren and I talk about this a lot also in our coaching, is that awareness is the first step in creating any kind of change. It's like step one in the 12 steps. It's admitting you have a problem. You don't know if you don't know.
Right.
So having these practices that cultivate more awareness in our lives, like meditation or journaling, I'm just curious, like, what are some of your practices, or what does your morning routine look like today?
Journaling. I mean, for me, like my normal routine is I work out every day. I go to the grocery store from time to time. I mean, we have 3 growing boys, so they're always eating through the house. I'm in charge of dinner. But like for me, my biggest thing that I like to do is journaling because I want to get everything out, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I don't care. It's on paper. I can go back to that day. Like, I mean, I have a Whoop too. Like, keep track of all of my stuff. So did I not get enough sleep? Did I not drink enough water? Is my blood oxygen off? Like all of these different stats. Like I'm a nut when it comes to it. So journaling, I think, helps me go back to be able to make steps forward, right? Like I can learn from everything that I've done in my past, but I can't do that unless I'm journaling everything that's happening. Even the bad stuff. Like some of the bad stuff, it's scary. I mean, like some of the things that I write down, it's not pretty, but I'm getting it out. And I think that's the most important part.
That's the power of the practice. It's getting out what's inside of you, because if you don't get it out, it turns on you and it eats you up from the inside out. But then there's journaling positive things like gratitude and focusing on the things we're grateful for every day, which if we're focusing on that, guess what happens? More good comes into our life, because where our attention goes, energy flows.
I started doing, I don't do it anymore. I need to get back to it. I think it's the 10-minute journal or the 5-minute journal.
5-minute journal.
5-minute journal. Like it's just something that's so easy and something that's so simple, but it's so important, right? You just sit down and reflect on the day. I think there's so much power to that. I think we live in a super crazy fast world, so being able to take that time to slow down, I think is important for everybody. But it's something that I know we try and do as a couple. Just take our time to ourselves. That's one thing I think we've done pretty well through quarantine.
I think it's important that you said that because I feel like a lot of people that maybe listen to this right now feel like they're most productive or like they're celebrated when they're just like grind. It's like any sort of rest or reflection or time that's not on task is seen as bad or like seen as you're falling behind, instead of, that could be that replenishing and that refreshing that you may need to propel you to go forward. Because if you don't stop and reflect and look back and acknowledge yourself for what you have done well and what you may need to change, and just look at it for what it is, you'll just go floating through life. I know that feeling all too well, and I never want to go back to that again.
You want to have a purpose, right? Yeah, you want to go through life, and I always want to take steps in that direction, right? Like obviously, I always want to move forward. Naturally, we're going to have hiccups in the road, no matter who we are, no matter what we do, right? But as long as you can learn from anything that you've gone through to be better, right? To be more knowledgeable, to be more prepared, then I feel like you're growing and you're learning. So, I mean, and it just, I don't know, you have a better opportunity to do absolutely anything you want, right? Like, I don't know, like preparation is something that's so important, right? So how are you going to prepare? I need sleep, I need to eat, I need to drink water, I need to study, like whatever it is, right? Like process those 5 things that you need to do and focus on those, right? Like I always feel like when you start doing too many things, you start losing your mind, right? Instead of just simplifying it and take on 5 things, do 5 things well for 30 days, you create that habit, and then in another 30 days, you can do 5 other things, right? And then you just build this whole plethora of weapons or whatever you want to go through life to be ready for anything that you come across.
I have to imagine for a good chunk of your life, you were always going from one thing to the next.
I never stopped.
Were you taking time to smell the roses? When you were winning these medals, did you take a step back and practice self-acknowledgement and say, I'm proud of myself for this, or did you just keep on rolling?
I just kept on going. I probably still don't understand fully what happened in my career. Because, so after the first Olympics, I was in the water the day after I finished competing to get ready for the 2004 Olympics. After the 2004 Olympics, I was in the water, I think, a week after, getting ready for the 2008 Olympics. After 2008 Olympics, I pretty much said, go fuck yourself. And I took 6 months off, and I didn't do anything. So yeah, I mean, there was no real time for me to sit back and to understand what I was doing. We were always chasing something, pushing ourselves to bigger limits. But yeah, I mean, I don't know when it'll ever sink in. I hope soon, but I mean, I can look at the medals now and it hasn't sunk in. I mean, just people reading my bios, it's crazy to think. Like, I don't understand how it was 20 years and it's gone. It's finished. It's over. Yeah, it was fun. I don't know.
I feel like it's such a tightrope of, wanting to push your limits and be the greatest possible version of yourself that you can be, but at the same time also respecting the human that's, jumping in the water, or the human that's underneath the face mask and the shoulder pads. It's like, how do I find this balance? And you just feel like you're going to fall every time as you take a step. But I mean, it's something that's worth the journey going on. Like, for me, I have a hard time, Donnie will tell you, I have a hard time acknowledging myself for, things I do well and just stopping, because it's like, got to be the next. Got to go bigger. I got to continue to, do this, do that. And it's like, man, at what cost, at the expense of me? And it's like, at one point, am I going to really be willing to say, it's not going to be at the expense of me anymore? Right. I don't think I've gotten there yet, but I feel like, I'm on my way, but it's just it's a difficult balance.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, I 100% hear what you're saying. I agree with you, because I think for me, throughout my whole career, I looked at myself as an athlete, not a human being, right? Like, I didn't see this in the mirror. I saw my cap and goggles going out to race. So, like, I didn't see myself as Michael Phelps, the person. So my identity was strictly around the pool. And that took a long time for me to understand and to process and to realize that I am a human. And I think really over the last 7 years since I retired, I think that's where I've finally been able to see, yeah, I'm a human being. Like, because I get so annoyed. People are like, oh my God, you used to be that swimmer. I'm like, really? Like, that's what you're going to say to me?
What am I now?
Yeah, like, are you kidding? But it's weird. But I think it's so important to make sure, like, you know who you are, and you can find who you are. Because it's for me, it's been a cool experience. It's been hard, but it's so much better to be able to feel good in your own skin, right? Like, I'm comfortable in my own skin now for the first time. Like, it's awesome. It's great. And I feel like a normal person. So it's, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. I'm still learning this.
Well, it all comes back to the most important relationship we'll ever have is the one you have with yourself, we have with ourselves. I was just talking to your wife prior to us going live just about how when we get right with ourselves, how now that starts to trickle into all of our other relationships. And I've heard you talk a lot about your guys' relationship, because when you started to do your own work, well, guess what happened? She started to see the fruits of the labor, and you guys got a stronger connection.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'll say for me, when I like going into therapy for me was kind of weird and kind of scary. Like, I didn't know what to expect. So when I went into therapy, I was able just to open up and to learn so much more and understand that it's okay to not be okay. Understand it's okay to talk about your emotions and your feelings. And I think what Nicole and I have gone through together and separately in our own journey, I think, has given us the opportunity to be the parents that we are today and the people that we are today. And without those steps, I don't think we'd be able to do that. I think we have so many more tools now than we've ever had, and we keep getting more, right? Like through the work that I know my wife is doing and the work that I continue to do, we just acquire more and more tools. And like that's me. Like you always hear me talk about tools. Like I want to go through life with as many tools as I possibly can because I want to be prepared for anything that comes my way. That's just one thing I guess I was kind of obsessed with throughout my career. Like I want to be I'm gonna stop because I'm just gonna keep going.
No, yeah, I mean the tools are everything, and it sounds like you're trying to give those tools to other people. What does the Michael Phelps Foundation do, and what does y'all's impact look like?
So the foundation, I started the foundation in 2008. I received $1 million bonus from an old sponsor, and instantly we started Michael Phelps Foundation, the I Am program. So I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm active. So it teaches kids basically ways to go about life. It teaches you how to goal set. It teaches you the importance of water safety. Water safety, drowning is the second highest cause of death for children under the age of 14. And it's behind car crashes. And then also another thing that we just implemented this year, I guess last 2 years, is a mental health component. Being able to understand your 8 basic emotions. For me, like when I was in treatment, being able to just understand what's coming from different spots in my body with emotions and this and that. And I think if you're able to recognize that, to talk about that, then you're able to grow and move on, right? So I feel being able to implement that at a younger age for kids, so they have that ability to understand it, but also have the ability to know that it's okay to open and talk, right? Like for myself, I stuff things down, not as much as I used to, but I used to stuff absolutely everything, every single thing down that I didn't want to talk about. And that's all that's going to do is pile up inside of me, and then it's going to make me blow up. So like, why don't we teach this simple, basic 8 emotion strategy where you can talk about these things to kids at a younger age, right? Like, I mean, I wish I would have known these things way younger, way long ago. You know what I mean? Right? Like, things would be so much easier. But like, I want to give everybody the chance to be able to do whatever they want to accomplish. And to be able to do that, like we have to be more prepared in our everyday life today than we ever have been with everything that's going on. So for me, it's been cool to see kids overcome fears, overcome obstacles, hearing the stories of them breaking through barriers and really just accomplishing whatever they wanted to and surprising themselves. For me, there's nothing greater. Because then they get to go back to the drawing board and shoot for the sky even harder, right? So it's like that's how I wanted. Like for me, that's how I was as a kid. Again, give every kid that chance. They deserve it.
Well,
Everybody does.
Those pillars of the mental health side of your foundation, I heard affirmations in there, which is creating a belief system in yourself, which once again, only story that matters is the one you tell yourself. The power of the mind-body connection, that the body remembers everything. And that, like our guest Trent Shelton said, what we suppress turns into depression. Mm-hmm. The body remembers it. It's not going anywhere. This is why I'm fascinated with yoga and teach the power of it, because I love the 12 steps. But there's, in my personal opinion, one missing piece, and that's the mind-body connection. Moving energy, moving stuck energy, where our guilt, our shame, our resentments, all of it, it's in there. Mm-hmm. We have to move it. We have to move and breathe mindfully in order to free it up, because energy can't be destroyed, but it can be shifted. And to be able to do that, and that's why you walk out of a class feeling light and free.
Yes.
What are you most grateful for today?
Honestly, just being here, being where I am, being able to have the family that I am, the family that I have, and being in the shoes that I am. Honestly, being able to go through the ups and the downs that I've been through, still struggling with them, and they're not going to go away, right? Like my depression, my anxiety, it's not going to go away. It's who I am. For me to be able just to look at myself in the mirror and like who I am, like I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be here. 2014 was scary. Last year was scary. I'm lucky.
I know that in life we learn everything at the pace and at the time that we're supposed to learn it. But if you could look back and maybe say something to a younger version of Michael that would maybe help him navigate some pitfalls or different areas of his life, what would you say to him?
It's hard because I think I don't know if I would give anything, because the road that I traveled brought me to where I am today. So if I would have not had some of those steps, I wouldn't be as comfortable as I am today. So all the pain that I went through and the hard times that I went through, I had to go through it in order to be who I am today, in my opinion. So yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, I wouldn't change anything at all.
That's the answer from someone that's clearly done the work, because you have trusted the process, that everything has happened the way it's supposed to in order for your soul to evolve, to be sitting here today and to be talking about something super, super powerful. I mean,
Things happen for a reason, right? Like, I mean, like we always hear that line, right? Like, everyone always says that, but it's true. Like, things happen for a reason. They happen when they're supposed to, right? Like, we can't control it. So just do what we're supposed to do, right? Put one foot in front of the other, keep learning, keep growing, and everything else will handle itself. I think. I don't know.
I agree. I believe that it's not the event that happens, it's the meaning we attach to it. And that's kind of having that growth mindset and seeing every opportunity, every struggle, every setback as an opportunity for strength. And for a lot of my time in my addiction, I was the victim. I wasn't taking personal responsibility for my own life. I was blaming everybody else and so resentful towards this doctor that screwed me over, that was, supposed to have my back and left me hanging, right? And I was just buried in that until I owned it. When I got in treatment, what I came to realize was it wasn't the physical. Like, I had a major surgeries and I could blame it on all the pills I was getting, but at its core, I didn't want to feel the emotional pain of the loss of baseball, the love of my life. So that's why I resonate so much with your story and the weight of gold and all the Olympians. I mean, that was like, it really, really struck a chord with me.
That was such a cool piece to be able to do that. I remember, literally, I think it was 2016 at the opening ceremonies, and we were getting ready to walk out. I basically looked around at the other athletes, and I almost could see it on their face that they were struggling. Like, literally, it was like written, like their emotions were written across their face. And I'll never forget saying, "Oh shit, this is bigger than anything I have ever imagined, could ever imagine." And then when we were able to get all of the athletes that we did to stand up and share their story, number one, we would never have imagined that 5 years ago, right? You never have 20 people stand up and talk about mental health, ever. So I have to take my hat off and thank them, because I know it's not hard, as we know, to share our stories, but we do grow a lot from our stories. To be able to have all of us come together, share our stories, but also to realize that they're all pretty similar. Every one of our stories are pretty damn similar. So, to me, it just shows that we need to do more work with mental health. That has to be an important thing. We can't shove it on the rug anymore, and we need to address it. But two, there's so many things I want to say. Sorry, I get.
Say it all.
Oh, there's a lot in here. But being able to have okay, I'm going to start over. Being able to have all of us come together to share our story. They're similar, but they're different. We're all trying to accomplish the same exact thing, but we also experience the same exact feelings and emotions. To be able to put that together when we did, the timing that we did, I thought it was perfect. We wanted to get it out before the Olympics even happened, and it came out in the middle of the pandemic. The rawness of it, for me, was something that I thought was needed. The conversation with mental health is never easy. Nobody enjoys having that conversation, but we have to have the conversation if we want to change. And if we don't have the conversation, how many other people are going to commit suicide? Right? The suicide rate has continued to rise over the last 5 years. So what are we going to do? We got to change. We have to talk about things. I think really over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to kind of break down a lot of the walls surrounding mental health. And I think the weight of gold has helped. I think Simone Biles has helped. I think Naomi Osaka has helped. I can name 100 different people, right, that have really helped break this wide open. But it's not enough. We need more. We need more people. We need more help. This is something that's real. It's something that I mean, it's bigger than any of us can even fathom. Like when I started on this journey after the games, like I knew it was big. I didn't know it was this big. And I still don't understand how big it is. But I know it's pretty damn big. And I know we need a lot of help. We need all the help we can get to continue to blow this conversation open, blow the doors off of it, save as many lives as we possibly can. Because there are people, millions of people that are struggling just like me, just like us, and they don't know what to do, and they're lost. So, I mean, I like to always say, open up, talk about as much as you possibly can. I want to try to start as many conversations around mental health as I possibly can. The Weight of Gold was a great start, but we have a lot of work.
Thank God you came back for those 2016 Olympics, because you came back with a whole nother level of awareness where you were able to see, I think the one thing that connects us all, it's pain. Pain is part of the shared human experience. And I think that's why I brought this up on previous podcasts with COVID, where you would think no one was immune to it. So that was a common thing that everybody, we were in it together, but yet you saw all this projection and a lot of disconnection. And it's all because of unfaced fear and unfaced trauma, the people not doing their own work. So I'm just glad you came back, because I think it really set you on this trajectory to where you are today.
But I think if I look back to that, like I wouldn't have been able to come back had I not done the work. Right? Like, because my head wouldn't have been cleared, and I wouldn't have been fully engaged. So I think for me, the work that I did freed me up to be basically a 10-year-old kid in a candy store, and I was just loving the world. I'm climbing the mountain, and it was the easiest climb you could ever imagine. It was freer, right? Like, you're not holding on to something. You basically do whatever you want, right? Like I don't know, right?
That's why I feel like my football career, as it's, kind of recreated itself, it's just the work on the human being preceded the results on the football field. Like, that was the only thing that needed work, because I stopped on the field and I was freer, and I was able to just be myself and not carry all that weight, and just it freed up the joy of it again. Whereas before it was so blocked out, and it became like a chore. It became like something I had to do. I had to get by. I had to maintain this image. But when I work on the human being underneath the pads, because I have to take him everywhere,
right,
it doesn't change when I step out there. So now that he's out there and he's freer and he's comfortable in his own skin, it's like it's a whole different product. And with that, people are inspired that I never even thought that I could inspire people, but now people are inspired by the way that I take the field, the way that I just take on life.
The way you be you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and even to give a look inside of like the work Darren and I do together, it has nothing to do with on the field stuff. We're talking about fears, emotions, self-love, like the real talk. And I mean, I might have started as Darren's coach, but I consider him one of my best friends today. And we're talking on a heart level all the time, telling each other, I love you. Not I love you, man. Not love you, but I love you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe it's conversations like this and with the platform you two have, it's changing the conversation. And you guys are doing big work.
Thank you. It's fun.
You are too, man.
We all are.
What would you say to somebody that maybe is out there and in one of those dark places and knows they're in that dark place, but doesn't know what to do about it?
I mean, as hard as it is, ask for help. Talk to somebody, whether it's your loved one, whether it's a friend, whether it's a therapist. And for a therapist side, like I get it too, like where you might have a hard time finding the right therapist for you. Right? Like that's a process. Sometimes the therapist that you go to just, it's not going to work right off the bat. So for me, like I had to go through a number of different therapists to make sure that I'm getting the right one that's going to help me move forward. I guess the only thing is like that person at home, like, again, like they have to understand they're not alone. What you're feeling right now, I can say I've felt a lot of crazy, wild feelings, down, negative feelings, and the only thing that like kind of helps me get out of it is whether it's staying on my routine or being around the kids and my loved ones, right? Like being around the people that love me for me. I think that's something that I always try to do. But again, like I mean, like the workouts are something that I have to do. I don't know. Like that routine, I think is just so important. So whether it's taking a walk, whether it's meditating, that's self-care, self-love. You know, you touched on affirmations. When I was in treatment at the Meadows, they said, my therapist told me to say an affirmation every time you walk in through a doorway. How many doorways do you think you walk through a day?
Wow.
In and out of the bathroom, and every single time. Every doorway you go through, say an affirmation. So I would have like 10 or 15 affirmations just on hand. You just rifle through them. And it's unbelievable. You walk taller. It's so good. I mean, like those little small things are so impactful, and they make such a big difference. So I try those maybe. I mean, anything. Try affirmations. Like, try talking to yourself in a positive way. I mean, like, look, I can negative talk to myself like no tomorrow, and I'm really good at it. But you know, I know it's not always healthy for me, and you know, I do know that like no matter how difficult of a time I'm going through, like I know I'm a good person. I know I deserve love. Like all of these things. Like, but you just have to say it and remind that to you. You have to remind yourself from time to time because it's hard when you're in that moment. It's hard when you're in that dark hole and you think the world is caving in. I've seen it all too much over the last 2 years.
Well, before we wrap up, we love to give a shout out to the people that have been with us through our journeys the whole way. So if you could give a comeback story shout out to anyone in or out of this room, who would that be?
Oh gosh, hold on. Sorry, start that again.
Just a shout out to anybody that's been there on your journey. We call it a comeback story shout out.
She's sitting in front of me. It's my wife. I mean, my wife, bless her, she's been through a lot. We've been through a lot. That I wouldn't want to go through life with anybody else. You know, I know she's the only one on the planet that would help me get through the most difficult times that I've been through. And look, you've heard me talk a lot about the last 18 months and the last 2 years. I had some scary ass times over those 2 years, real dark places. And without my wife, I never would have made it through. So she's the best. She's my rock. She holds me together.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for being here with us today, man.
Thank
you
you
for showing us, you know, who you are as a human being. I feel like that's way more impressive than anything the swimmer ever could do, that's saying something. So thank you, man.
Oh, for sure. And it's honestly, this has been awesome. Thanks for having me on here, and I've loved watching you. As a Baltimore guy, obviously a huge fan. Watch your story pretty closely. To see what you've done now and see where you are today is unbelievable, man. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Not only what you're doing, obviously, on the field, but what you're doing off the field. It's incredible stuff.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, Michael, thank you. I want to acknowledge you too, man, just for showing up the way you do. Always being down to do the work, but most importantly, carrying the message. Your impact is probably way, way bigger than you could ever imagine. So just keep showing up, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Got it. All right, we're out.
Peace.